It's another interesting edition of the Economy and Politics show where we discuss key developments in the socio-economic space as it affects the households. Today, we'll be looking at assessing consumer confidence in Nigeria. And no better person to discuss this than Mr. Lampe Omoyele. He's the MD, Nitro 121. Nice to have you on the show, Mr. Lampe.
Thank you, Otto. Thank you for inviting me.
And a happy new month of November 2021 to you.
Same to you.
Yes. As we all know, this is the penultimate month to the last month of the year, 2021. So it's interesting to look at how consumers are faring and what are the issues impacting them. But before we begin this interesting conversation, let's just give you a key wrap-up of some key stories in the economic space from last week. Last week, President Muhammadu Buhari joined global leaders in Glasgow at the COP26 summit, where he assured the globe of Nigeria's commitment to cutting down CO2 emissions in the span of the next 3 decades. He also said that the country will continue to work on modalities to support sustainability as part of its plans to drive development. Also last week, the Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, appearing before the Senate Committee on Works and Housing, assured that key projects like the Second Niger Bridge and the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway will be completed by 2022. He said all efforts are being geared towards ensuring that that is achieved. The Senate committee said they will continue to monitor these steps taken in that regard. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll go on this interesting conversation.
Tune in to Web TV Daily to stay up to date and informed on the financial market, personal finance, and more. We have got you covered with all your favorite TV shows, economy and politics, market review, women's series, millennial talk, Islamic Finance Weekly, The Brief, exclusive interviews, events, and we keep you up to date on all the updates in the financial market with the market opening gong. Watch premium content. Watch Web TV. Same news, different perspective.
Welcome back. If you're joining the Economy and Politics show, yes, you're on the right spot at this period. And we have Mr. Lampe Omoyele. He's the MD Nitro 121, discussing the assessment of consumer confidence in Nigeria. Anything that happens in the global economy or national economies, we must look at how it's impacting consumers. And that's the conversation today. So, Mr. Lampe, let's look at the year 2021, and there have been very interesting developments. And I will just drill down to two. The double-digit inflation that we still have in the country and the devaluation of the currency. These are two issues that are having effects on consumer confidence. But can you provide further insight on how this is impacting the consumers and how they are able to navigate this at this point?
Thank you, Otto. So in response to that, let me just give a very short context of what consumer confidence is. It's very simply how consumers feel about their current states in terms of their disposable income and also their propensity to spend into the future. So that's a very summary what consumer confidence is. And as you have rightfully indicated, with double digits in inflation, in terms of general inflation, the latest report indicates about 17%. But not just the general inflation that is high at 17%. You find that the food inflation, and food, as we know, is a need in the lives of consumers. Food inflation is hovering at about 22%, so it's higher than general inflation. Now, the consequence of that is that consumers are having a challenge in terms of their disposable income. There's a decline in general consumer disposable income. And as a result of that decline in consumer disposable income, there is an erosion in terms of the consumer confidence, and also in return, a demand for items that are required. Now, economists tell us that that's stagflation, where there is high inflation and a decline in consumer demand. So there is that pressure on consumers in terms of their pockets and how much money they have to spend today. And as a result of that, they also have concerns about tomorrow. So consumer confidence has declined as a result of the pressures on their income and also in terms of their ability to spend money on things that are considered as essentials.
Well, I mean, it's really, really a challenging time, and I know that that even dovetails from the impact of the COVID pandemic. It really had an effect on the morale of consumers.
Yes.
You witnessed those scary things you used to watch in movies where people protested,
Yes.
riots, and they unleashed the anger and terror.
And to build on that point you make, you find that in addition to the concerns that are emanated because of COVID, there are increasing concerns about health and safety amongst consumers. So they're concerned about their health, and they're also, because of issues around security as well, they're also concerned about their safety. So there's that added pressure, concerns about health and safety, and also the fact of stagflation is making it difficult for them to spend money. So you just find an overall situation where consumer confidence has declined, and it's quite low at the moment.
You know, as someone that I know, you do a lot of assessment, not just in Nigeria, not just even in Africa. You have a very global watch in terms of consumer confidence. What has happened in the effect of the impact of COVID is that countries had to carry out measures to stimulate economic activities, pumping funds, like in the US and the UK. When you look at the fiscal policy approach so far from the government currently in trying to stabilize the economy, to instill that consumer confidence, boost it again, restore it, would you say that it has been very effective, and what areas needs to be addressed further?
Unfortunately, one cannot say that they have been effective. A lot of the measures have been what you might call very short-term impact that have a very temporary impact. Now, in terms of therefore strengthening the fiscal policy, we have to be looking at things that will truly inject funds into the economy. Now, that is not happening even on the short term. And because of what we are finding, I mean, we to balance both the fiscal and the monetary policies of the government. There does seem to be a disconnect in terms of the fiscal policies and also the monetary policy. And there needs to be a harmony between those two policies for it to have an impact. Now, because of the disconnect between the fiscal and monetary policies, is where you're finding a situation where the forex rates have skyrocketed, and the interventions that the CBN has tried to put in place. But it does appear that the CBN on one part is not coordinating with the federal government in terms of fiscal policy, and we have the disconnect, and therefore we're not seeing the desired impact, both on the short term, and we are worried, people are generally worried about the long-term impact that we could be seeing. And I think therefore government needs to be looking at injections into the economy. I think there seems to be a bit of too much focus on the monetary side of management of the economy.
That's a very strong one, I mean, in terms of a clear but very strong statement from you in terms of the need for alignment. And I can tell you, Mr. Lampe, this has been like a hymn. You know, when you have a favorite hymn that you sing, this has been a major hymn throughout the year, the need for alignment between monetary and fiscal policy. And it's very clear what you've said, the need to make it more fiscal driven, because it's like the monetary has been intervening. So you see so many interventions and you wonder, how is it impacting the consumer? So that is where you've brought the case for the fiscal and monetary policy alignment. And this is maybe a very big puzzle that whoever solves may be given to just be very, to just say maybe a Nobel Prize, because it has become a very critical issue in our economic management model, and time is ticking. It needs to be done quickly. But Mr. Lampe, I want to ask you around two likely decisions that will come up next year, because this administration has had its philosophy around social interventions and ensuring that things are stabilized. But more market-based philosophies will look at the need to begin to strategize around its economic model. So the big two issues on the plate are subsidy removal and implementing a market-based electricity tariff structure. Two socioeconomic decisions that policymakers are tinkering with to move the economy forward. But there are the consumers, like you said, who have already been weakened with the impacts already of inflation and devaluation. Is it time for this to be adopted, or should we have a further delay? Because it's all about the consumers, or you say the households too.
It's obviously it's an interesting question, and obviously a challenging position for the government to be. So let me start by saying that between the people, and let me use in this case the consumers and the government, there is a trust deficit. And that trust deficit is why there will be concerns on the part of people, in this case, the consumers, on the removal of the oil subsidy, or also therefore basing electricity tariffs based on market forces. Now, because of the history of issues on oil subsidy, there's a trust deficit. There's the issues around corruption, and therefore there's a lack of consumer confidence in terms of if oil subsidies are removed, if the electricity tariffs are based on market forces, would it really benefit the consumer? That is the big question. Now, the government needs to address that trust deficit, because if that trust deficit is not addressed, and then even if you remove the oil subsidies, if you go electricity tariffs market based on market forces, will the consumer benefit? Now, however, having said that, there's also the challenge on the part of government that needs to enhance revenues. Now, removal of the oil subsidies should ordinarily result in improved revenues for the government. Yes. But again, back to the trust deficit issues. If you do remove, the government does remove all subsidies, is there transparency? Do we in fact know today how much the value of oil subsidy is? The figures around that is opaque, and that again is leading to the trust deficit and the lack of consumer confidence. All right. Yeah. So there's issues in removing the oil subsidy. There has to be a better level of transparency. There has to be a clarity on the part of government that if this subsidy is removed, what is going to be done with the additional revenues and how it's going to impact on the people of Nigeria, the consumers. So to answer your question, the timing would be challenging for the consumer in Nigeria if it is removed now. I know that there are also some political considerations that may make timing difficult.
Yes.
However,
my friend Emir Sanusi was saying that he knows that they won't try it next year if they had
yeah. So the question is, at some point it has to be removed. The oil subsidy has to be removed. Yeah. But the success of removal of subsidy is going to be hinged on improved transparency on the part of government, and also clarity in communication to consumers, the people of Nigeria, in terms of what the benefits would be, and show that transparency and honesty, sincerity of purpose, that it will benefit the consumer, whether the removal is now or later. Those factors need to be addressed. And same for the electricity tariffs. Yeah. Would it result in a significant improvement of electricity supply to the consumer, that is the people of Nigeria? So the summary is the timing would hardly ever be right, whether now or later. What is going to be critical is that there is a transparency, there's a sincerity of purpose, that when these are done, the consumer will benefit from it. At the moment, since we are talking about consumer confidence, the level of consumer confidence regarding these two areas is weak and needs to be addressed.
That's a major task for government because over the years, like you rightly said, the trust deficit has been the major issue why people resist or kick against measures like that. And while we were discussing, I was just thinking in my head that maybe if the government has to push with that and engage the consumers or citizens, they may have to leverage institutions that are respected. For example, faith-based organizations, churches, someone from the church, the mosque, the civil society, and even labor. Get them involved in the whole process, assess the transparency so that the full implementation done by them will engender that trust and confidence. Because without the trust from the consumers, like you rightly said, the policies will not have its effect. So it's clearly noted, and we hope we can have a win-win situation in this regard so that we can have a stable policy, because definitely, like you already said, any action taken next year will be considered penultimate election year. So as we begin to wrap up, let's look at next month, of course, is the last month of the year. And of course, consumers will be planning and looking at how to wrap up the year, the festive season, Christmas, and other activities. As an expert, how do you advise consumers to approach the season of families in terms of expenditure? And because sometimes it's good to really plan effectively, but it's good to get some tips on how to approach, particularly how this year has been. It's been a challenging one to navigate.
Already it's happening because of the weakened consumer disposable income. Consumers are really looking at different ways in which to spend their money. So I try to talk about the fact that consumers are switching, looking for more affordable items. They are swapping in terms of the kind of packages that they are buying. Maybe they used to buy bigger packs before. They are looking for smaller packs. Mm-hmm. They are squeezing, all right, and they're rationalizing the quantity and frequency of consumption. And I believe that would be the advice that I would give consumers as we approach the festive season. On the assumption that consumer disposable income is not going to significantly improve in the next few weeks, consumers need to be focusing on essentials and putting aside some money for, as they say, the proverbial rainy day. So we know it's a festive season. There's cause to celebrate life. So put aside some things now. And because we've seen the inflationary trend, it might be useful to begin to buy some items now and not wait until the week before December. So before Christmas. Yeah. So it's important to buy some items that you know that you require for Christmas right now, because it's cheaper. The inflation trend will suggest that prices will continue to increase as we approach Christmas. So buy essential items that are required now, whether it's food items, any items that are required now, if it's gifts that people want to buy for other people. I think this is the time to begin to buy these items and not wait until a week or two before Christmas. And then, of course, ensure that purchase is only mainly of really essential items. And then also make sure that the consumer, make sure that they are prepared for what is called the longest month of a year, that is January of a new year.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Lampe. In just 10 seconds, if you can tell us a global summary, what you see in the global consumer assessment in the index.
I think that in some countries, there's a stronger consumer confidence. And when I say stronger, I don't mean necessarily very strong, but stronger consumer confidence compared to 2020. The globe will seem to have adjusted to the reality of COVID-19 and seeing how to live with the pandemic on a day-to-day basis. So there is improved consumer confidence. However, it is still challenged because economies around the world are in a challenging position. In fact, I was in a gathering some days ago where it was indicated that the economy in the United States of America which has showed some initial growth, is not projected to be having as strong growth as projected. And if they don't do certain actions, a recession may be nigh. And I think that it also applies for Nigeria. Our growth, while yes, there's been a recovery, is not as strong as it ought to be. And therefore, there's still work ahead to be done. And bringing it back to the consumer perspective, the consumer needs to be aware that the economy is not out of the woods yet.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Lampe Omoyele, MD Nitro 121, for the very clear insights you've given around consumer confidence in Nigeria and the fact that despite the adjustments we've seen, there's still a lot of work to be done. And hopefully, your nice advice to consumers to start buying now, preparing for the festive season, we would have to start doing that quickly. Those major foodstuffs and gifts, so that we don't get caught up in the December rush where prices will go high and you will now be saying, I wish I did that earlier. Thank you once again, and look forward to further interesting conversations with you.
Thank you for having me.
And that will be all for this edition of the Economy and Politics Show. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions around assessing consumer confidence in Nigeria, you can send your views, comments, or questions to otobasi.abasekong@proshng.com, and we'll get back to you, particularly engaging our guests from today. Also, you can follow our social media platforms displayed on the screen to get further updates on developments in the economy as it has to do with consumer confidence. And also hit our website, www.proshng.com, to read the latest reports and analysis around the clock. I want to say that this period you need to continue to stay safe. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.